Hey traders, what's up? To watch this video here for Tuesday, September 21st. I talked about the SPY kind of consolidating above the 50-day in the video this weekend, right? And that it's held the 50-day all these different times. This is the 60-day, but you get the point, right? The 50-day, if we want to get technical, is the orange line on this chart. Anyway, for this purpose, we can just use the 60. And the point I'm trying to make is I had said in the video that every time it's come to the 50-day, it's had a nice bounce. But if you look at all the times that's happened, it kind of fell there pretty quickly. Those are better setups for a bounce. See all these times, 3 days down straight into it, a gap down into it, a couple days down into it. And this time it went down and was going sideways right above it. And I said that tends to make a difference. If you're looking for it to hold support, that is not as bullish when it does that. And so then today just absolutely tanked. And at one point we were down very close to the Dow being down 1,000 points. I'm not sure where it ended up, maybe down 600. But the SPY is now firmly below the 50-day. Who knows? Tomorrow, maybe we're back above it. You never know, right? The market's like that. I don't make my money off predicting the market, though. I make my money off individual stocks, trading them the way that we teach in our course in our chat room. So that's what I'll be doing tomorrow. I do have a couple highlights from today because even in a very, very ugly tape, and I'll show you the SPY on 5 minutes, you had the gap down and it bled lower slowly most of the day and really kind of a neat little bounce at the end of the day, right? That's probably the last 40 minutes of the day. Had a good little bounce that ended up giving us this little tail here. So anyway, but in that ugly tape, there were some pretty neat calls. And one of them was mine, actually, believe it or not. BROS was already on the bounce playlist, and it looked about like this when I put out the idea in chat. Second mouse through 43.50. The earlier high was 43.54. I like the gap down bounce play setup. Anyway, there's the 43.50 break right there. See the earlier high right there? And it flagged for a little bit and really just ended up going out at pretty close to the highs. So from my 43.50 idea, 50 cent worst case loss, right? And it did not go down 50 cents from the entry, went to 52. So that's an $8.50 move on the long side from during an ugly tape, which, and the reason I kind of stress that is even on ugly days, even in ugly markets, there's usually something you can trade to the long side. I am a long bias trader. I don't like shorting, but I can almost always find something to trade. And if I can't, I don't trade, right? CRVS was a nice call today by Kevin P. And I love this setup. You're going to love it too. If you weren't in chat today, you kind of had a gap down. There's Friday's high, which was 580. So today it gapped down a little bit and then kind of ran up pretty close to Friday's high. It went to 559. That number is relevant because then it kind of puts in this cup and handle. And so then, and by the way, the top of this handle was right around the 550 area. So we have a half number inflection point. Kevin P was looking for a break of 550, which is a half number inflection point with the earlier high a day above and Friday's high just above that. We call that stacked catalyst, and this little sideways handle in this cup and handle gives you a pretty darn tight stop too, right? So the 550 break, which happened right here, look at that. That's a 5-minute candle. Your worst case stop is like 15 cents below that handle. So that was a very low risk call. And from the 550 idea on about 15 cents risk, Kevin P's idea went to 690. Beautiful idea. And then also a hat tip to Nick C, who called ATER. And I'll show you the daily first. This was already on watch from the overnight video. I said it had found support. It's a recent high flyer. And ended up, I almost called a second mouse through 11 right there. And I just didn't trust the market because things were so weak and the big gap down. I just didn't think ATER would get legs in the opening 10 minutes on a weak gap down in the market. So I just didn't do anything with it. I didn't take it either, but I didn't call it. But then you kind of had this flag going on, right? And you can kind of picture a trend line there. The earlier high was 1285. Then the first lower high was 1275. So Nick C, when it about looked like this, called it over 1275. So in other words, it's taking out this lower high. It's a 3/4 number inflection point with the high of day above on a stock with great relative strength and a recent high flyer. So there's like 5 reasons to take this trade. And there's the 75 break. And it went pretty quickly to 1350. So it's not a huge move, but 75 cents on a 1275 entry pretty quickly is a nice little day trade. So there's some highlights from today. What are we watching for tomorrow? I've several stocks on bounce watch. I'm actually going to watch Apple for a bounce. It hasn't broken its early high, and you guys know when I talk about bounce plays, I look for afternoon high of day breaks, kind of out of a narrow range. And the last time it broke its early high in the afternoon was, let's see, this was today. This is Friday, Thursday. Would have been Wednesday, and then it didn't do it the day before, the day before, the day before, the day before that either, or the day before that. So it's only done it once, I would say, in about 10 days. So now, Apple, that was, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, 157.26 is down here in the 142 area. I think that would be a decent scenario for a possible bounce play if we get an afternoon high of day break. Whoops, I didn't mean to hit that button there. In Apple. So that's one of my bounce plays. ANY, I don't love this, but you could argue it had this nice pop, and now you're 3 days down in a row, and basically to support. Maybe it came down this low just because of overall market weakness, but it is at support. In other words, it closed at about the recent low, but because it had this pop and then round tripped, it makes me like it a hell of a lot less. But if we get an afternoon high of day break in ANY, it does become interesting to me. SGMA, very strong move from under 650 to 1250 in about a week. Now you got 2 days down in a row back to the 8-day, retesting this prior high from a few days ago. So that's an interesting bounce play setup for tomorrow. OPAD, it's a crazy trader, but it had a move from like 9 to 21, then lower the next day, which was Friday, and then lower again today. But it's just now getting back down to the 8-day. So this is a pretty interesting bounce play setup, believe it or not. Even though you could argue you got a whole bunch of bag holders from this green day, it might be time to bounce. So we're going to put that on watch. I'll only take it with a proper intraday A-plus bounce play setup. CCJ, the uranium stocks were really, really strong, and now this one's down like 5 or 6 days, right into the 20-day. So that one goes on bounce watch. Again, my favorite setup on these, an afternoon break out of a fairly narrow range on the day. TMC, not very pretty, but had a move from 831 was the low here to over 15 the very next day. So, and now you've got, it's been chopping around for a while, and you got 3 days lower, kind of retesting recent lows. This one, is a decent setup for a bounce play, but not my favorite. So we're going to have that on watch. INDP. Normally I wouldn't have had this on watch at all, but I don't know. For some reason, it's a little bit interesting to me. And the reason I say I wouldn't have it on watch is because everybody's underwater. I mean, this thing had a lot of volume, right? Almost 175 million shares on this crazy day, and everybody ended up underwater by the close. The next day it gapped up, which I didn't touch it that day because there were too many people underwater, and then it closed red. Again, the next day closed red, and the next day, which was today. So how do I break this down? It's ugly, but it's gotten to the point where if you oversimplify it, you could say, hey, 4 sessions ago, this was almost $29, and now it's under $9. That's a decent math equation there for a potential decent little bounce tomorrow, right? I know that sounds lame. It's not at any kind of great support. It's as simple as this thing went crazy 4 sessions ago, and it's just fallen off a cliff, really, for the rest of that session plus 3 more. So I do like it for a potential bounce, but I'm not oblivious to the fact that there's a whole bunch of bag holders in the name. I still think it could give a decent percentage bounce if we get an A-plus setup. All right, I've said enough about that one. SYBX, nice little breakout today, or breakout attempt. Closing well off its highs, but decent volume and certainly relative strength to the market. So I'm going to see if that gives any kind of follow-through setup tomorrow. BROS, I talked about this in chat today, and it's only been trading for 4 days, but talk about relative strength. We're going to watch that one again tomorrow. CRVS, I talked about Kevin P's call on that one today. Generally, I wouldn't have something on long watch that's had 2 big green days in a row. I'd like to see it come in for a bit, but you know what? Strong enough compared to the market that I'm going to watch it tomorrow too. All right. IRNT, really nice bounce. So you had the huge move, then a red day, another red day, then the gap down. It kind of gave a gap down bounce play setup, but my chart was messed up, so I didn't get a chance to get involved. But really strong close relative to the market too. We're going to see if that gives a follow-through day tomorrow. Remember, I'm in cash every night, so I'm just looking for things that might give me some money tomorrow. EDSA, I think they're into monoclonal antibodies, if I'm not mistaken. and got like a $20 price target put on them today. I did read somewhere that this company is low on cash. It's trading at $9.50 now in after hours. I don't know if they announced an offering after hours or people are just worried about that. I haven't looked because I don't care because I'm a day trader. I'll see if it gives a setup tomorrow. But that is massive volume, so I do want to have it on watch. And then lastly, I threw JCS on the list, which had the gap up here, came back down, and really great strength in a week tape today. So maybe we get kind of a 2-day, if there is such a thing. You guys know what I'm saying, though, that you guys in the chat room. 2 days, second mouse through 9 maybe. It's certainly worth watching. All right, I've babbled long enough. I'll see everybody in the chat room in the morning. Have a good night.